Part 176. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1751. Xiang Yi pondered for a moment and replied, I'm not particularly sure. I only heard Emperor Fengdu say that you and Huaxiu are brothers and sisters. Although you two are separated by thousands of years, the cause and effect is still there. He seems to be trying to create some ancient curse formation and wants to kill you through the holy bones. I fell silent upon hearing this. The sacred bones cannot be destroyed. Once it is destroyed, it will suffer fatal backlash. Of course, this backlash refers to the person who destroyed the holy bones. I can already guess what Emperor Fengdu was thinking. Huaxiu and I are brothers and sisters, connected by blood and entangled in cause and effect. There are many curses that can kill people and become invisible through blood. No wonder Emperor Fengdu came to talk to me, it turned out he was confident. Thinking of this, I sighed slightly. I thought that after becoming stronger, I could do things that I couldn't do before. But now it seems that I still have weaknesses. My weakness is the loved ones around me. Whether it's Su Tianxian, Huaxiu, or even Xiao He and Xiang Yi, if something happens to any of them, I can't just ignore them. Forget it, now that it has happened, I have to find a way to solve it. Instead of feeling sorry for yourself here. Xiang Yi could see the sad look between my brows. He said in a deep voice, Lu Su, don't worry, although I'm not as powerful as you now, I will definitely protect you. Even if I'm out of my mind. I smiled and said, don't keep saying things like losing your soul, we will all live well. Soon, the sedan arrived at Fengdu City. The sedan landed in front of Fengdu City Gate. The top 10 Ying commanders led Xiang Yi and me towards the city lord's mansion. The entire Fengdu city was so quiet that there was no sound at all. I could even hear my breathing clearly in my ears. In the blink of an eye we arrived at the city lord's mansion. The city lord's mansion covers a large area and is very impressive. However, this is the underworld, and any majestic building here will be shrouded in a layer of darkness, making it look extremely weird. Bai Vuchang made an inviting gesture towards me. Please. Xiang Yi and I walked into it and came to the main hall where guests were welcomed. There is an 8 Immortals chair above the main hall, with several chairs neatly placed on both sides of the 8 Immortals chair. I looked around, but there was no one in the main hall. Just when I was doubting, a gust of wind came over. The chairs that were originally empty were now filled with people. I looked carefully. Sitting in the main hall is Emperor Fengdu. On both sides are the 10 palaces of Yama, the 4 great judges, and the ghost emperors of the 4 directions. All the gods from the underworld appear here. Even if I don't look at them, I can feel their vicious and malicious eyes. Lu Su, you're here. Emperor Fengdu said to me. I looked at Emperor Fengdu coldly and said, stop talking nonsense. Where are my wife and sister? Emperor Fengdu smiled, put on a humble look and said, don't worry, they are very good, but before meeting them, we might as well have a good talk. I said coldly, I have nothing to discuss with you. I only have one request, hand over my woman and sister. Emperor Fengdu still smiled and said nothing. At this time Zhong Kui stood up. Lu Su. If you want to save your woman and sister, you should sit down and have a good talk. Zhong Kui is not that hostile to me. After all, we had worked together before, and Grandpa Zhong took good care of me. End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1752. Zhong Kui's words seemed to be supporting Emperor Fengdu, but in fact they were hinting to me that if they didn't follow Emperor Fengdu's words, something would happen to Su Tianxian and Huaxiu. I frowned. Zhong Kui continued, Xiao Su, be obedient. Sit down and have a good talk. I took a deep breath and said, okay, for your sake I'll sit down and have a nice talk. Emperor Fengdu saw me let go and waved at me, and the next second a chair appeared behind me. I sat down and looked at Emperor Fendu and asked, "Tell me, what do you want to talk about?" Emperor Fendu got straight to the point, "Lu Su, if you decide to let us go to hell today, I will let your woman and sister go." I sneered and said, "Since I'm sitting down to talk to you, you have to tell the truth. Even if I leave now, can you let my woman go?" Emperor Fendu smiled and said nothing. "Obviously, you don't believe what you just said, so don't be pretentious about what you want to do." I'm too lazy to talk in circles with Emperor Fendu. Emperor Fendu was silent for a moment and said, "Okay, I will tell you directly. I want you to join us and open the tomb of the gods. Then we will work together to rebuild the way of heaven. As long as you agree, you will be the Lord of the gods." Lord of the gods. The temptation is indeed great. I looked at Emperor Fendu and said with a cold tone, "The reason why the gods are sealed in the tomb of the gods is entirely because of your greed. You have been corrupted by evil thoughts. Even if you are released, you will not be able to correct yourself. I'm afraid that when the time comes, the world will fall into dire straits. Also, I know your purpose. Use me to rebuild the way of heaven, and then the gods will control all things and be above all things." Emperor Fendu's expression changed slightly. I knew I was right just by looking at his expression. "Lu Su, can't we discuss it at all?" I shook my head and said, "No." Emperor Fendu sneered, then stood up slowly and walked out of the main hall. Yama of the 10 palaces, Ghost Emperor of the 4 directions, and the 4 great judges also followed. I saw Emperor Fendu being mysterious and followed him. Emperor Fendu stood in the courtyard of the city lord's palace. He pointed his finger in one direction and said, "Lu Su, I am giving you one last chance. Promise me, and your woman can live." I looked in the direction pointed by Emperor Fendu. I saw a small tower in that direction, and there seemed to be an altar on top of the tower. There seemed to be a person tied to the stone pillars of the altar. I looked carefully, my pupils were trembling violently, and anger was spreading crazily in my heart. "You wanna die?" I pulled out the magic whip and pointed it at Emperor Fendu. Emperor Fendu said expressionlessly, "Lu Su, if Su Tianqian is not enough to move you, what will happen next?" After saying this, Emperor Fendu waved his hand. A magic circle was spread out in the courtyard. I frowned. I had never seen this magic circle before and had no idea what it was. Emperor Fendu saw that I was puzzled, and he said to Zhong Kui, "Please explain." Zhong Kui stepped forward with a solemn expression and said, "This formation is called the 9 turns of blood and bone formation. The so-called 9 revolutions blood and bone formation is based on the blood relatives of the 9 clans and spreads a vicious curse. The eyes of the formation are blood relatives of those who join the formation. Once they join the formation, the blood relatives will be firmly tied to each other. They will live together and die together. Forcibly breaking the formation will cause the bones of the person in the formation to be broken and become a cripple." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1753. Hearing Zhong Kui's explanation, my heart skipped a beat. Huaxiu is the sacred bone of heaven. Once I break the formation, Huaxiu's bones will be broken. Heavenly holy bones are bones given by heaven. If it is destroyed, it will be counterattacked by heaven. And Huaxiu and I are blood relatives, and we are entangled in cause and effect. If something happens to Huaxiu, I will definitely die from the backlash of heaven. With my current strength, I have no chance of winning against Heavenly Dao. Emperor Fendu was indeed extremely sinister. He has already set up the 9 revolution blood and bone formation here. Whether you invite me to come or come by myself, I will join the formation. Because I didn't know Emperor Fendu's plot in advance. After Zhong Kui finished explaining, Emperor Fendu looked at me expressionlessly and said, "Lu Su, you don't know that your sister is the heavenly sacred bone, right? Once you break the formation or I activate the formation, then your sister's heavenly sacred bone, the bones will be destroyed. Once the holy bones are destroyed, heaven will punish the person who destroyed the holy bones. And one of the characteristics of your 9 revolutions blood and bone formation is that blood is connected and cause and effect are interdependent. Therefore, the destruction of the holy bones has nothing to do with me." I looked at Emperor Fendu coldly. The anger in his heart has reached its peak. Su Tianqian was captured and now tied to the altar. Hua Xiu also entered the battle with his own body, and his life was at stake. No matter it is Su Tianqian or Hua Xiu, I have no way to rescue them. This is what to do. Emperor Fendu finally showed a proud look on his face. "Lu Su, when I learned that you obtained the God List and the God Whip, I knew you would definitely come to me. Of course, I am also very afraid of you because you hold the power of my life and death. Although you are strong now, you have too many weaknesses. Once your weaknesses are discovered, even if you are extremely capable, you will not be able to defeat me." Emperor Fendu looked at me with a smile and said, "How is it? Do you want to consider joining us now?" My brain was running fast, and I couldn't think of a good solution after thinking for a long time. I asked, "If I join you, will you let my woman and sister go?" Emperor Fendu nodded and shook his head. "More or less, I will only let your sister go, because both you and Su Tianqian can open the tomb of the gods, but you can't die now, so Su Tianqian can only die," Emperor Fendu said calmly. I frowned. This forces me to choose between Su Tianqian and Hua Xiu. If I choose to cooperate with Emperor Fendu, then Hua Xiu can survive. If they don't agree, Hua Xiu and Su Tianqian will die. Both of them are the most important people in my life, and I would not feel at ease without either of them. Emperor Fendu saw that I was still hesitating and said to me, "Since you are hesitant, then I will let you meet your sister. You can make a decision after meeting your sister." Then, Emperor Fendu said to Zhong Kui, "Go and bring his sister." Zhong Kui nodded and turned to leave. Time passed by, and no one knew how long it had passed before Zhong Kui walked over with a solemn expression. Hua Xiu did not follow, which made my heart tremble. Emperor Fendu's face changed slightly when he saw this. "Where's his sister?" Zhong Kui glanced at me, and then shouted loudly, Hua Xiu destroyed the holy bones of heaven." "What? Who told you to talk nonsense here?" Emperor Fendu roared angrily. Zhong Kui raised his voice a little higher and said, "I'm not talking nonsense. Hua Xiu cut the flesh and removed the bones, and is now dying." As soon as these words came out, my brain buzzed and I couldn't hear any sound. The words cutting meat and removing bones kept coming to my ears. End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1754. 9 turns of blood and bone formation. As long as I break the formation, Hua Xiu will have his bones broken and die on the spot. As long as Emperor Fendu activates the formation, Hua Xiu will suffer the same fate. At this moment, I was like meat on the chopping board, ready to be slaughtered. I've been thinking about ways to break the situation. After much thought, I couldn't think of a good solution. But Hua Xiu cut the flesh and bones, sacrificing himself to break the situation for me. Emperor Fendu's plan also failed. I came to Zhong Kui like crazy and shouted at Zhong Kui, "Where is my sister?" Just as Zhong Kui was about to answer, Emperor Fendu roared from the side, "Zhong Kui." Zhong Kui's words stopped and he looked back at Emperor Fendu. His eyes gradually became firm. He turned to me and said, "I'll take you there." At this moment, I knew Zhong Kui was on my side. Because he just deliberately loudly said that something happened to Hua Xiu. The purpose of doing this is to tell me that the 9 revolutions blood and bone formation has been broken and I can get rid of the shackles of Emperor Fendu. Zhong Kui might have been worried about Emperor Fendu's face just now. Now it's time to break up. Zhong Kui's body flashed and he attacked in one direction. I followed closely behind. The roar of Emperor Fendu came from behind. Stop them. As soon as Emperor Fendu finished speaking, bone-chilling yin qi suddenly came from all directions. Then I saw countless yin soldiers gathering in my direction. At this time, Zhong Kui's voice sounded in my ears. Hua Xiu is in the room not far away. I've told you the location. Just go there yourself. I'll stay here to help you stop them. After saying this, Zhong Kui stopped and faced countless yin soldiers alone. The situation was so critical that I didn't care what to say to Zhong Kui. Xiao He and Xiang Yi have been by my side since they entered the city lord's mansion. Now that Emperor Fendu and I are at odds, the two of them have stayed to defend me against the tide of underworld soldiers. I followed Zhong Kui's direction and came to a room. I stood in front of the door and stretched out my trembling hand to push the door open. The door opened and made a creaking sound. This sound lingered in my ears like a magic spell, constantly stimulating my tense nerves. The moment the door opened, a strong smell of blood came out from inside. Elder brother. A weak voice sounded in my ears. I shuddered and looked in the direction of the sound. I saw Hua Xiu sitting on the bed wearing a red cheongsam. When I first met Hua Xiu was wearing a fairy skirt. But after she left the ancient tomb and came into contact with modern clothes, she liked to wear cheongsam. But, I clearly remember that Hua Xiu was wearing a white cheongsam before he was taken away. Hua Xiu's face was pale, and his eyes were full of tenderness when he looked at me. Hua Xiu. I came to Hua Xiu with a trembling voice. Brother, I know you will definitely come back. Hua Xiu spoke in a weak voice, which almost made my nervous nerves collapse. I stretched out my hand to hold Hua Xiu's jade hand and asked, Hua Xiu, you? Hua Xiu smiled brightly at me and said, Brother, don't worry, I'm fine. Look, aren't I fine? Saying that, Hua Xiu stood up and turned around towards me. Brother, look, I'm fine. Hua Xiu looked at me and said with a smile. Are you really okay? Hua Xiu nodded and said, of course it's okay. Brother, who are you listening to nonsense? Before she could finish her words, Hua Xiu's legs softened and she collapsed directly to the ground. End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1755. I was shocked and quickly held Hua Xiu in my arms. Hua Xiu struggled weakly. No. Don't hug me. I frowned more and asked, why? Hua Xiu didn't answer, just shook his head desperately. At this time, I suddenly felt a warmth coming from my palm. My brain buzzed and I pulled out my hand tremblingly. I saw that my palms were full of scarlet blood. I looked under Hua Xiu in panic. I don't know when, there was a large amount of blood under Hua Xiu's body. Blood is like red plum blossoms in the snow. Poignant and glaring. What the hell is going on? I yelled panicked at Hua Xiu. Before entering the room, I was afraid of seeing Hua Xiu's mangled body. After all, cutting meat and deboning involves cutting off every inch of flesh and blood on the body, and even the flesh on the bones must be shaved clean. I entered the room with such an uneasy heart, but after entering the room, I saw that Hua Xiu's body was intact and not harmed at all, and my hanging heart was slightly relieved. But now, Hua Xiu didn't answer me, just shook his head desperately, trying to break free from my arms. At this time, I suddenly noticed that there were scarlet cuts on Hua Xiu's exposed skin. The knife edge was like cracked ice spreading across every inch of Hua Xiu's skin. In addition, the knife edge gradually became larger, and Huashiu's flesh and blood was slowly falling off like a peeling wall. Huashiu! You! I shouted to Huashiu with a trembling voice. Huashiu raised a wry smile and said, "Look, it seems I can't hide it from you anymore. I just cut off the flesh and bones, cutting off every inch of flesh and blood on my body, and then smashed the bones into pieces. Before Zhongque came in, my body had been destroyed, and my consciousness remained in the room and refused to leave. Every word Huashiu said was like a dagger piercing my heart. The intense pain left me unable to breathe or think. The image of Huashiu cutting meat and deboning has already appeared in my mind. Flesh, blood, and broken bones were scattered all over the ground. The once beautiful sister has turned into a puddle of minced meat. Huashiu is a zombie, soulless, but she has memory and consciousness, which is why she can live like a normal person. Logically speaking, zombies do not have blood, but Huashiu does not turn into bones and has long surpassed ordinary zombies. Huashiu stretched out his hand with difficulty to wipe away the tears from the corners of my eyes. Consciousness and memory are separated from the body, and I can't last long, but I don't want to disappear, because I haven't seen my favorite brother yet, so after Zhongque came in, I asked him to use magic to maintain my body and let me the memory and consciousness have a place to stay temporarily. I looked at Huashiu. There was no trace of pain on Huashiu's face. She was still as gentle and intellectual as before. "Sister, why are you doing this?" I asked Huashiu with a trembling voice. The corners of Huashiu's mouth lifted up into a sweet smile. Because I am a younger sister, of course I have to help my older brother. Sadness is like a gloomy dark cloud, shrouding my soul, making me seem to be drowning in endless darkness. I couldn't see the light, there was only darkness in front of me. I didn't expect that the departure of my loved ones would happen again before my eyes. At this moment, my spirit completely collapsed. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1756. Huashiu reached out his hand and gently wiped away my tears. "Brother, don't cry, it's no big deal." Huashiu's voice was extremely weak when he spoke. I tried my best to control my emotions and said to Huashiu, "Huashiu, don't worry, my brother will find a way now and he will definitely let you survive." Huashiu shook his head slightly and said, "Brother, it's useless. Although I am a zombie with steel and iron bones, no one can hurt me easily, but I have to leave this time." The flesh and blood on Huashiu's body was slowly falling off. Her eyes were red and full of reluctance. "Brother, do you still remember the agreement between you and me?" What agreement?" Huashiu slowly opened his palm, and a small seed appeared inside. These are dandelion seeds." "Dandelion seeds?" Huashiu raised a wry smile and said, "It seems that brother has forgotten it, but it doesn't matter. Sooner or later, brother will remember it." I stared straight at the dandelion seed, and a long-lost memory emerged in my mind. I finally remembered this memory. The childhood memories of Huashiu and I. When Huashiu came into the world, I was already the crown prince, that is, Luce. As mentioned before, after Huashiu was born, green buds sprouted from the dead trees 10 miles away from the palace, countless birds hovered over the palace, and auspicious clouds floated in the sky. Everyone in the court, including my father, thought Huashiu was an unknown princess. If such visions of heaven and earth appear to a boy, then the whole country will be rejoicing, but the bad thing is that it happened to a girl. Before Wuzation, there was no precedent for a woman to be emperor in any dynasty or generation. Moreover, women's status was very low in ancient times. Some women have been imprisoned in that small courtyard their whole lives and have never seen the real world. Therefore, Huashiu was locked up in a courtyard of the palace after she was born. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a cold palace. Princesses born in the royal family have two situations: either they are favored, or they are ignored. Obviously Huashiu is the second type. It is precisely for this reason that there is no record of Huashiu, a princess of the Han dynasty, in history. And I had never seen Huashiu before I was 8 years old. Until that day. One day I was admiring flowers in the garden when I suddenly heard a loud thump, followed immediately by a crisp, milky cry for help. Help! I looked for cries for help. I saw a small figure splashing in the water in the garden pond. I am not a water person, so I asked the eunuch to rescue the little figure. This is the first time I saw Huashiu. She was wearing ancient shabby palace maid's clothes. The clothes were too big for children, and Huashiu's hair was messy, making her look like a little beggar. At that time, I was pampered and had no interest in such shabby and ugly people. Huashiu is not ugly, but malnutrition has led to a sallow complexion and thin skin. However, I felt an inexplicable affinity for Huashiu in my heart. I brought Huashiu to the bedroom. Huashiu seemed very reserved along the way, with her little head lowered and her head bent as she walked. Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but feel a little funny. After returning to the palace, I asked the eunuch to find 2 clean clothes. The eunuch took the order and went forward. But the eunuch who had been serving me since childhood whispered in my ear, "Your Majesty, this little girl looks like Princess Huaxiu who was born 5 years ago, that is, your sister." End of this chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1757. I asked doubtfully, "Since she is my sister, why don't I know about it?" The personal eunuch glanced at Huashiu and whispered, "Your Majesty, you don't know something. When Princess Huashiu was born, she was born with a strange phenomenon, withered trees blooming in spring, and hundreds of birds singing. Some people say that Princess Huaxiu will definitely become the emperor when she grows up, so the emperor ordered that Princess Huaxiu be imprisoned in Luohua Garden for life." I was shocked. Will I be an emperor when I grow up? Doesn't that take my place? Ancient people were very superstitious and believed deeply in the divination of ghosts and gods. Lu Che was established as the crown prince at the age of 7 and inherited the throne at the age of 16. I am only 8 years old this year and have just been established as the crown prince for a year. I wanted to be the emperor, so when the personal eunuch said this to me, I took the eunuch into the palace to drive Huashiu away. But after arriving at the palace, Huashiu curled up on the bed and fell asleep. I looked at Huashiu's small face, and sympathy suddenly rose in my heart. The eunuch wanted to move forward, but I stopped him. "Stop it all. Today's events are not allowed to be spread to outsiders. If anyone dares to talk too much, I will definitely kill all 9 of your clans." Despite my young age, I was raised as an heir since I was a child, so my character is naturally much higher than that of my peers. Moreover, being born into an emperor's family, one's character will be somewhat aggressive and decisive. The eunuchs were so frightened that they quickly retreated. After the eunuchs left, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Huashiu. Huashiu frowned like an injured kitten, curled up and shivering. I just looked at Huashiu without waking her up. I don't know how long it took, but Huashiu slowly opened his eyes. The first time she opened her eyes, she saw me, which frightened her so much that she quickly got up and fell to her knees in front of me. "Sorry." Huashiu kept kowtowing at me. Seeing Huashiu's move, I was slightly startled and asked, "Why do you say you're sorry?" Huashiu trembled and said, "Mommy told me that everyone I meet after leaving Luohua Garden is an existence that I cannot mess with. If I bump into them, I will definitely be killed." After Huashiu finished speaking, he kowtowed to me again. I'm sorry. Please don't kill me. After Huashiu was imprisoned in Luohua Garden, she had only one nanny to take care of her daily life. What this grandma said is also true. The emperor ordered Huashiu to be imprisoned for life. She was treated like a concubine in the cold palace. The status of a favored concubine is lower than that of a palace maid and eunuch. If unfortunately he died in the palace, no one would notice or sympathize with him. I looked at Huashiu and asked, "Do you know who I am?" Huashiu shook his head slightly. I stretched out my hand to help him up and said, "I am your royal brother." "Brother royal." Huashiu murmured in a low voice, raised her head and looked at me. She looked at me for a long time, and then asked me, "Then, can the emperor not kill my sister? My sister is very well behaved, and she has a gift to give." "Brother Huang." I was startled, then smiled, and said, "You want to give me a gift? What gift?" Huashiu took out a red sachet from his waist and handed it to me. I took the sachet and smelled it. It had no smell at all. "This sachet doesn't smell good either? You actually want to give me such a shabby thing?" Huashiu raised his head and glanced secretly at the luxurious sachet hanging on my waist. She said in a small voice, "It's broken, it's a little broken, but the things inside are precious." End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1758. My interest was piqued by Huashiu. Let's see what baby it is. With that said, I opened the sachet. Inside the sachet is a bunch of seeds. Seed? What kind of seed is this? Huashiu raised his little head and said to me, "These are the seeds of flying catkins and fallen flowers." I was slightly startled. Flying catkins and falling flowers? What is this? Why haven't I heard of it? Huashiu tilted his head and thought for a while, then said, it's just a kind of flower. This kind of flower is small, round, and fluffy, and it flies away when blown. So I named it Feisuluahua. I pondered for a moment, and what Huashiu said should be a kind of herbal medicine. At that time, there was no such thing as a dandelion. But dandelion first appeared in the Han dynasty, and was later recorded in the Jin dynasty. However, I didn't dwell on this matter. I said to Huashiu, "It's a rare thing. I've kept this bag of seeds. I'll plant them in a few days. If they don't grow up as you describe, I'll kill you." When Huashiu heard this, her pretty face turned pale with fright. She waved her hands repeatedly and said, "Don't kill me. I don't lie. Everything I say is true." I felt funny when I saw Huashiu like this. At this time, the eunuch came in with 2 new clothes. I gave the clothes to Huashiu and asked her to change them, and then sent them back myself. Huashiu changed her clothes obediently. This dress really suits Huashiu. Moreover, she was not as ugly as before. I personally took Huashiu back to Luohua Garden. Huashiu did not lead me in through the gate. Instead, he secretly came to the palace wall of Luohua Garden. There is a garden next to Luohua Garden, and this wall is in the garden. Huashiu got into the flowers, but I didn't follow him. After a while, Huashiu poked his head out and said, "Brother Emperor, why don't you follow me?" I looked at the flowers with some disgust and said, "I am the crown prince, how can I behave like you among the flowers?" Huashiu looked at me aggrievedly and said, "Brother Emperor, are you going to break your promise? Didn't you say you wanted to send Huashiu back?" Seeing Huashiu's aggrieved look, my heart instantly softened. I could only follow Huashiu and get into the flowers. On the other side of the flowers is the palace wall of Luohua Garden. There is a dog hole in the corner. Huashiu took the lead and got in directly. I looked at the dog hole and hesitated for a moment before getting in. We can't let our father know about this matter. If I let my father know that I a crown prince, have gotten into a dog hole, I will definitely be punished. Luo Huayuan is very large, but it is not luxurious, it is very shabby. There are no flowers or any decorations in the huge courtyard. It's winter now, and everything you look at is bare. Huashiu looked around cautiously, then patted his chest and let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, Grandma hasn't come back yet. Huashiu turned around and looked at me and said, Brother Huang, do you want to come into the house and sit for a while? I was startled, hesitated for a moment and nodded. All right. Huashiu pushed open the door and entered. I stood behind Huashiu and felt the cold wind coming. This room is as cold as an ice cellar. There is a world of difference between Huashiu's bedroom and mine. My bedroom should be as luxurious as possible, and Huashiu's bedroom is not even as good as the eunuch's place. This makes me feel even more sorry for Huashiu. Huashiu came to me and started chattering to me. Perhaps because of being siblings, Huashiu is not as reserved as when he first met me. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1759. Huashiu told me many things. I also learned how difficult it is to spend time off. She was thrown here after she was born. However, my emperor father was not too unfeeling. I found a wet nurse to nurse Huashiu. After Huashiu was weaned, the wet nurse left. In the days that followed, Mammy took care of Huashiu alone. Huashiu's life was very hard. The young master would withhold the monthly payment from Huashiu here every year. Therefore, in Huashiu's words, she has never had such good clothes. Spring, summer, and autumn are a little easier, after all, the weather is not particularly cold. But in winter, Huashiu had no winter clothes and no means of heating. Sometimes when it was too cold, Grandma would go to the garden to pick up some dry tree branches and burn them to keep warm. The winter of the year before last was so cold that Huashiu and Nanny split the table in the house to keep warm. It was even more difficult to sleep at night. Huashiu could only hug her grandma to keep warm. I felt very distressed after hearing what Huashiu said. They are obviously born to the same parents, so why can I live a life without worries about food and clothing, while Huashiu? However, Huashiu doesn't seem to care much about this kind of life. Her mentality is very optimistic. She looked at me and suddenly asked, Brother, what do your father and mother look like? Huashiu looked at me with beautiful eyes open without blinking. I opened my mouth, not knowing how to describe it. I can only briefly describe the appearance of my father and mother. Huashiu's eyes flashed with disappointment. Brother Imperial, I want to meet my father and mother. I sighed slightly and said, in this situation, it's better not to see your father and mother. Huashiu asked in confusion, why? I pondered for a moment and could only tell Huashiu the cruel truth. Huashiu, my father doesn't like you. If he really cared about you, he wouldn't lock you here. Moreover, if you appeared in front of him now, he might kill you. Huashiu's eyes immediately turned red when she heard this. She lowered her eyes and shed tears. The most ruthless emperor's family. It is a very sad thing to be born into an imperial family. How many examples in history have brothers killed each other or killed their fathers to seize the throne in various dynasties and generations in order to compete for the throne? Huashiu was born with a strange phenomenon, a phoenix among people. In this superstitious society, if the emperor did not kill Huashiu, he would be showing mercy outside the law. Brother Imperial, I don't understand why my father and mother imprisoned me again after they gave birth to me. Is it because I shouldn't have been born? After a brief encounter, I felt extremely sympathetic to Huashiu. Perhaps, This is the meaning of the existence of bloodline. I couldn't help but stretched out my hand to take Hwashiu into my arms, and said softly, "Don't be afraid Hwashiu, Brother Huang will find a way to rescue you from here. Then you can go wherever you want. If you want to eat, you can eat whatever you want. And no one will bully you. Because you are my sister, the princess of the world." Hwashiu hugged me tightly and choked with sobs. "Brother Emperor, are you telling the truth?" I smiled and nodded, "Of course it's true." Hwashiu raised his head and said to me, "Brother Emperor, please don't lie to me, and Brother Emperor, can you come and see me often?" "Of course," I said to Hwashiu. Hwashiu smiled sweetly. I stretched out my hand and pinched Hwashiu's face and said, "Look at how thin you are. Brother, I will make you fat and white. Hwashiu will definitely be even more beautiful than now." End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1760. Afterwards, I chatted with Hwashiu again, and then left from the dog hole. Since that day, there has been an extra place in my heart for Hwashiu. I will secretly ask my trusted eunuch to deliver some food to Hwashiu every day, including clothes and heating items. When I have free time, I will secretly go and play with Hwashiu. Because I am 2 years older than Hwashiu, we also have a lot in common. Hwashiu's mood is getting better and better under my care, and she is no longer as thin as when I first saw her. In addition to spending time with Hwashiu every day, I am also working hard to become a good crown prince. Because I know that only after I inherit the throne will I have the chance to let Hwashiu walk out of that dilapidated courtyard. On this day, I went to see Hwashiu as usual. This is the second year that Hwashiu and I have been together. Hwashiu is 8 years old this year, but she is elegant and generous. However, after I went there that day, Hwashiu sat in the room blankly. "Hwashiu, what's wrong with you?" I asked. Hwashiu turned around suddenly when she heard my voice. Her eyes were red and tears burst out from her eyes. "Emperor, brother, grandma is no longer here." When I heard this sentence, my heart skipped a beat. I know how important Mammy's position is in Hwashiu. Hwashiu had no parents since he was a child, and it was the nanny who made him grow up by pooping and peeing. For Hwashiu, grandma takes care of her like a grandmother. I didn't know how to comfort Hwashiu, so I could only hold Hwashiu in my arms. Hwashiu cried bitterly in my arms. I don't know how long she cried, but she fell asleep in my arms. I held her like this until evening. When Hwashiu woke up, she pulled me to the courtyard as if she had lost her soul. In the past 2 years, I have asked my personal eunuch to plant various flowers in the courtyard. But Hwashiu didn't like it. Her favorite is dandelions. To this end, she dedicated a piece of land to growing dandelions. "Brother Imperial, the catkins have fallen and the flowers have fallen and planted seeds," Hwashiu murmured to me. I looked at the large field of dandelions in front of me and nodded, "Yes, they have seeded." Hwashiu knelt down and picked a dandelion. She held a dandelion in her hand, and then blew it gently, and the dandelion seeds flew into the sky like heavy snow and drifted away into the distance. "Brother Emperor, do you know why I like flying catkins and falling flowers?" I shook my head and replied, "I don't know." "Because the seeds of flying catkins can float with the wind and go wherever they want. I will place my thoughts on the flying catkins and let them go to the person I miss in my heart instead of me." Hwashiu turned around, looked at me, and said, "Brother Emperor, if one day you can't find Hwashiu, just blow the falling flowers and they will float in the wind and come to me." I asked, "But the world is so big, how far can it float?" Hwashiu smiled and said, "Brother Emperor, although the world is very big, when the catkins and flowers are tired, they will find a suitable place to grow. After they have formed seeds, when the wind blows, they will continue to fly all over the sky. Over and over again, I believe there will always be a seed flying in front of you. I know that Huashiu is sad because of the death of her grandma. She is also afraid that I will leave. Huashiu took my hand and said, Brother Emperor, if one day Huashiu disappears, you must plant flying catkins and falling flowers. End of chapter.